Hello and welcome to episode 33 of TNA Top 10. Andrew, how you doing tonight?
33. Happy Ron Swanson Day to you,
33,
Terry.
33.
Here's the deal. It's Ron Swanson Day. Ron Swanson is me in television form. He hates the government. He hates his menial job. He loves bacon. He loves steak. And we're here to talk about how the government sucks on tax day. It's April 15th, ladies and gentlemen. Pay your income tax because you've already paid your property tax, your usage tax, your sales tax, your inheritance tax, as well as your gift tax. So now it's time for you to pay your income taxes if you have not already. And don't try to cheat because the government hates competition. Despite the fact my two colleagues are somewhat employed by the government, I still hate them. Fuck them in the middle of the street with a chainsaw. Do not care. I'm good though, Terry. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay. I was having a great day, and then things got busy after work. Just so many things to do,
What
but I
happens when
made
you're
it.
a dad?
I sat down. We got it going, trying to get everything. We'll hit some point of the show where I'm like, "Oh crap, I forgot about that," but that'll be more fun, right? We can't be
Yeah.
overly prepared.
Overly prepared? We're never prepared. Don't you know I'm the guy that throws the notes out?
Oh, so that's going to be a surprise for me. I'm going to have to wait to see which page you threw out.
Oh yeah, I've got all sorts of yeah, I got all sorts of surprises for you tonight. There is stuff we're going to talk about that's not in the notes
Oh, I'm
because
sure
I
there is.
added it, but I added it in my head. See, I thought I told you about it, but probably not.
Well, anyway, let's get going on some football spring games because that's kicking up a notch. We
Terry,
talked about Auburn
Terry,
last week.
I'm dressed for the occasion. Look at that shirt, baby. Ala freaking Bama. Oh, roll
Yeah,
Tide.
they needed a little help on their field conditions this weekend, is what I hear.
Well,
A
that's
little
because
bit
Saban's
funny.
not there anymore. Caleb DeBoer apparently goes around the facility smiling, and Nick never smiled. You know, he smiles now because he's retired, but he never smiled back in the day, and they're not used to a coach smiling. But here's the thing: if it was Saban run Alabama, that field would have been pristine. There'd be no question about the field conditions because he don't give a shit if it's the spring game or the A game or the practice game or whatever you want to call it. He wants it perfect because that's how he was. But yeah, so the spring game, offense, defense, the
First
field's
time
torn
ever.
up.
They used to
I
play a
mean,
football game, but you know, they're just like everybody else now, right?
yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You know,
Yeah, it's a practice.
I mean, it's a practice, and you're seeing who's good. It's very clear. Jalen Milroe's going to be your number one QB. They're not going to give him a lot of reps in this game because they don't have to. You're
Right.
looking at the speed of your defense. You're checking your receivers' routes. You're looking at blocking schemes, what works, what doesn't work. That's what these spring games are for. But you got to remember, even though it's April, we're still 4.5 months away from training camp for the actual fall season,
Mhm.
and then we go to town. You know, so
And there's
these
still
guys
roster
are.
moves ahead of us. Who knows what it's going to be like?
Oh, and I don't it doesn't matter who it was. Somebody entered the transfer portal and it was out of Penn State. And I can't remember who it was, but the transfer portal is still a thing and
It
we're
is,
however far past whatever. So he's entered the transfer portal and I forget who it was, but you're going to see a lot of that. Just a warning to our
especially
listeners, not
second and third string quarterbacks are going to be hitting the portal pretty soon.
exactly, not like we're going to talk about it a lot. But you know, like for instance, in Nebraska, I got Rayola, we got Heiberg, and we've got Kaling.
So
So
what you're
it
saying
is
is Rayola is going to hit the transfer portal pretty soon.
what I'm saying is Rayola's the number one QB. You can stop that shit right now. But anyway, what I was getting at is if one of them doesn't get a position they don't want, to your point, Terry, they don't have to stay locked into a school anymore. They say bye bye, you
Yeah.
know, and so that's going to be very interesting. But back to the Alabama game, it's a new culture, it's a new environment. It's not Nick Saban, the dictator and the tyrant. But remember, each coach has their own process. Kirby keeps things a little bit looser at Georgia, and he's won two national championships. Although he did learn at the foot of the greatest coach of all time. DeBoer brings in a much more positive, engaging, fun attitude, whatever you want to call it, than Saban, who was the general. I mean, Nick Saban was the general. He was in charge. There was no doubt who controlled Alabama football for the last 17 years.
And he was a
But
defensive coordinator.
and he was the defensive coordinator. But with DeBoer, you're going to see a cultural change, and I still think he reaps the benefits of Nick Saban's system. I think Alabama wins a national championship inside the next 2 or 3 years, and they're going to do it because it's still Alabama football, and you have a very good coach. Now, is he the greatest coach of all time? Absolutely not. That belongs to one person, and that's Nick Saban. But who's not the greatest coach of all time, but I love, is Lane Kiffin. What I don't love is what happened at the Ole Miss game, and you can tell all of our adoring fans about this bullshit.
So I guess Lane was kind of inspired by the Pro Bowl or
Mm.
something because all right, let me run it down. First off, they had a hot dog eating contest won by Joey Chestnut. They had a
Who?
slam dunk contest on the field.
Hold on. Who other than Joey Chestnut's going to win the hot dog eating contest? Even I know that.
Well, it's
You
Mississippi.
talk you talk about the perennial powerhouse in Alabama football a minute ago. Strange that Saban's not prowling the sidelines. I saw that note and forgot to say it, but it's true. He's golfing as long as he gets his chores done. I saw that on the interview.
Yeah.
Miss Terry lets him golf as long as he's getting his chores done. But anyway, other than Joey Chestnut, who the fuck has a chance at a hot dog eating contest? I mean, it is Ole Miss.
Like I said, it's
So let's.
Mississippi. I mean, there's a lot of champs around Mississippi that could down a few hot dogs. Let me tell you. I mean,
But
come
it's
on.
Joey Chestnut.
I live
This
in
is the
Alabama. We live our whole lives thanking Mississippi for being number 50 and everything.
correct in literacy rates, income, poverty, divorce,
Obesity, yeah,
obesity, blood pressure, blood
exactly.
sugar.
They did all these skills competitions with like tire flips and stuff, and whatever points they got from that actually went toward the score of the game. And they didn't wear pads; they were in shirts and shorts. And I don't know if the offensive and defensive lines just set the whole thing out or what, but I saw some highlights. It was what it was. It was a fun day.
Yeah, it's county fair essentially is what they did. They did county fair, the loose practice. It doesn't really matter. Let's face it though. I want all of our listeners to hear me in a very loud, clear voice. Which, as you know, Terry, because you do our editing, you get to see all the audio spikes when I start talking. Because I'm very loud and it's very clear. Ole Miss will be a contender for the national championship this year. Make no mistake about it. All this looseness, all this funness, or fun, all of this, whatever you want to call it, not taking this shit seriously. I promise you, Lane Kiffin is coming loaded for bear come September. And the reason is he's got probably the best transfer portal class in the country. And he knows he's got some experience in the key positions. He knows Saban is no longer in the league. Because I saw some stupid statistic. Old Miss beat Nick Saban twice in 17 years. Terry,
Mhm.
tell our fans who the head coach was at Old Miss when they beat Saban twice
Well, the same guy that's going to beat Alabama this year, Hugh Freeze.
in your wildest dreams.
And we're going to be there right there together to see it.
In Tuscaloosa, bitch, please. Alabama by 17, and it ain't going to be close. But no, in all seriousness, Saban had such a psychological edge over these teams. But
Mhm.
here's what I think about Lane Kiffin. He ain't scared of shit. Okay. I mean, this is a guy whose social media account is worth following just because he trolls the hell out of everybody and does not care. I think on the interview we mentioned with Terry and Saban, where he was mentioning that as long as he does his chores, he's okay. Lane says she's the only one that I'm afraid of. Saban looks 10 years younger or something. He's talking about Nick
Right.
Saban looks 10 years younger than he did as the head coach.
I'm
but
sure.
but yeah, Lane Kiffin ain't scared of shit. So go ahead and bring on Kirby, bring on Stark, bring on all these guys he's coached with, played with, play or coached against. They're going to be ready at Ole Miss,
I
despite
think
all this silly bullshit they did this past weekend.
it might bring some players in. It might help recruiting, but I'll tell you who's not doing that, and that's Kirby. I believe he had a straight up football game Ones against the ones, twos against the twos, how we used to do it. But that's
Well,
Kirby.
well, let's make no mistake about it. Alabama, excuse me, Georgia's lost one game in 3 seasons,
Mhm.
and it was to Alabama in the SEC championship game that me and the producer went to. Very, very good game. Um, Georgia will be an odds-on favorite to win the national championship again, because they've won 36 straight regular season games. Name a team that's done that.
Not
You
lately.
can't do it without looking. That's my point.
Yeah.
You can't do it. I can't do it either. I'm not just picking on you, Terry.
I mean,
I
it would be
can't do it.
years ago. Yeah.
Nebraska did it in 93, 94, and 95, but remember they lost the Orange Bowl they lost the 94 Orange Bowl for the 93 championship. So I know they did it. I know USC did it. But the point is it's incredibly difficult
Hmm.
to say that Georgia isn't the best program in the country right now.
Absolutely. It's
And
going to
I
be
mean,
hard. I mean,
you've got
a
Ohio
lot of
State, you've got
competition.
defending national champion Michigan. We've already talked about Alabama, Ole Miss, Auburn on the rise, Penn State up there hanging out, Oregon over there out west. But
Tennessee, if they
honestly,
can get their act together,
if
they'll
they
go.
can get their act together, but pound for pound, player for player, recruit for recruit, coach for coach, Georgia's the standard
That's right. And
in
they
my
had
mind.
their spring game this week. Tennessee, Ohio State, Penn State, and Miami did, and about 30 other teams that weren't even worth mentioning. So a lot of spring football this weekend. Nebraska has theirs in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Uh, I gave you some grace last week. You were talking about it being last weekend, and I knew
Oh yeah,
better.
I messed that up because we had a live scrimmage. It was red versus white, and it was a live scrimmage. I could go
Okay.
into it, but you don't want to hear all about it. Bottom line is Rayola needs a little work, but the arm is really strong. Heinrich is a great runner, and Kayleen is the best of both. Here's the problem: according to Matt Rule, they're all even because they all have one thing they do better than the other, but they all have things that they need to improve upon. So in his mind, they're all even, and I don't even know how the hell that happens. But we're moving on, I guess, to basketball. Did you see the way they announced this guy, Mark Pope at Kentucky? They brought the 96 championship team onto the court, and everybody came with him and the national championship trophy. Now, that, sir, is making an entrance.
Well, that's all he's got going for him. They had to do that.
Are you saying, and I'm being genuine, are you saying that Mark Pope is a lackluster in terms of their hiring process because he's not John Calipari?
I'm saying for the University of Kentucky, I say this is lower than I would expect.
I was just asking you as a guy who's Bruce Pearl is your man.
Yeah.
This isn't Bruce Pearl. This guy
No.
doesn't have the resume of Bruce Pearl, and
There were
that's
Nate Oat rumors, Bruce Pearl rumors. None of that
and
happened, or maybe behind the scenes didn't happen.
and it's not putting Bruce Pearl on a pedestal. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but he's a very good basketball coach, and this guy isn't. If you look resume to resume, paper to
Mhm.
paper, he's not in Bruce Pearl's league. And
Right.
Auburn is your defending SEC champion.
Tournament champion. Remember,
Well,
I got on the Auburn fans about that.
stop it. Get the fuck out of here. Lord have mercy.
But anyway, all I'm saying is, I'm sure he's a good coach, but Kentucky is at a level above that, and we're going to see what happens after this. They may dominate the SEC moving forward, and I'll just eat some crow. But I don't know. It had the feel of this didn't happen the way it wanted to. But
Yeah, I
let's move
didn't think
along
so
to the
either.
next thing.
Let's move along to the next thing because we got a lot to go through.
We got a lot of wrestling to talk about.
Oh
Let's
my
start
God, do we
AEW.
ever?
So let's go ahead and dive into it. We saw some video, not the video we want to see, but we saw the video of CM Punk approaching Jack Perry in the back at All In. Um, Looked like they had a few words, and then CM Punk shoves him. I think there's a quote from CM Punk about "I didn't punch him, I just choked him a little," or something like that. which I
That's
thought was
exactly what he said in the
right.
Ariola Wani interview. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, but I mean, it lasted just a few seconds. They got broken up or whatever. So obviously, what he said in that interview was a lot more telling, I think, than the video. But he is definitely the one that was the aggressor here. I don't know what the words were that were said, but as far as shoving people, CM Punk did that. But like I said, that kind of thing in a vacuum, I expect happens at wrestling matches a lot, and we hear about it. The video that really matters is the one we're not going to see.
Yeah, the one from the first brawl out with
Right.
the EVPs. But this is what I'll say about this. Number one, it looked like they had to fight. I mean, it was one of those things where you're not going to lose credibility by backing down. And he picking on Jack Perry, who's 165 pounds soaking wet. Now, he might be chiseled out of granite, but he's a small person. Number two, Samoa Joe broke the thing up in 15 seconds. Okay, if Samoa Joe stepped at me, I'd stop doing whatever the fuck I was doing too. Let's be
Yeah.
honest about it. Number three, CM Punk is on the right side of this story. Nothing AEW showed went contrary to what CM Punk said in that interview,
Right.
including
Exactly.
the fact that he pushed him and then he put him in a
Right.
chokehold. So,
Right.
uh, this segment, in my mind, proved no purpose. But I'm one of those guys that Pepsi Cola doesn't talk about Coca Cola and vice versa. You know, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't get Tony Khan's obsession with WWE because WWE is the pinnacle, is the brand, is the apex. Oh, and by the way, they're hitting on all cylinders.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, because Tony Khan took except as an example, the pettiness of this, and we'll move on real quick. Triple H announces 200,000 people were in attendance for WrestleMania weekend. SmackDown, both nights of WrestleMania, Raw, and the Hall of Fame. And Tony Khan says, well, remember, we're going to release the video from Wembley, which is the largest indoor wrestling event ever, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. And here's the other thing from a quote ratings
Uh,
perspective. They got 50,000 more viewers out of this, according to the ratings. They broke 800,000 instead of hovering around 750 or whatever it is. And
people
I and
wanted
I
to see something.
I really run the risk of sounding like Jim Cornette here because the Young Bucks did nothing to advance their position or their story.
Not at all.
Tony Khan doesn't look any different than he did going into this. Jack Perry looks like the quote victim or scapegoat, and guess what? He's playing over in New Japan, the fucking
Yeah.
scapegoat. So this didn't serve any purpose in my mind to move forward. No reason whatsoever to even do this. You could have,
But then they
and you
extended
have
it
it.
to FTR. I mean, FTR goes in the ring and they're like they're fighting back against it with a
Well,
bunch of statements.
they're on their 4-year contract. FTR's losing this ladder match come Dynasty. The Young Bucks are going to win. Jack Perry's going to make an appearance to make sure that the Young Bucks win. And you're going to get all of that nonsense. But this is a ladder match. It's a Dynasty. It's got to be gaga and bullshit because the Young Bucks are involved. They cannot put on a straight up tag team wrestling match that's worth a fuck, let alone two. And so they've got to have the gaga, and it's the only way that they're going to legitimately beat FTR is with bullshit. So that's where
Absolutely.
I stand on this because I believe FTR is the best tag team in the world and number 3 in the history of wrestling. So at that point, the Bucks need all the fucking help they can get. And by the way, they're not the young Bucks anymore, they're the old fucks. So they need to move the fuck on, kind of like we do. And let's talk about Dynasty. FTR, Young Bucks. This is the 4th match now, and FTR leads the series 2-1. But this is a ladder match. Young Bucks win. I don't know what you think, Terry. It's coming up next week, or no, it's Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
Sunday.
don't see anything around that. I think Young Bucks are definitely winning this or whatever they're calling themselves,
Well,
EVPs
and what
these
they're
days or whatever.
they're going to reestablish the elite. So what you're going to see is Okada, the Bucks, Jack Perry. That's your new elite. and you're setting it up successfully for it to be against Kenny and Cowboy and maybe Ibushi or whoever they get to come on. But the other thing is they finally figured out a women's match in AEW. Thunder Rosa, Tony
Well, it takes
Storm.
Thunder Rosa coming back and doing something.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to be that guy, but without Jamie Hayter, without Britt Baker, um, the women's division in AEW is weak as water. Tonight on Raw, we didn't mention it. We mentioned at the top, Rhea Ripley has apparently vacated the women's world heavyweight title because of a
So
shoulder
that
injury that
title
happened.
apparently, if you go a week without being able to defend it, you have to give that one up. That's not true for all the rest of them, apparently.
That is correct. The problem I have is Rhea was on a damn roll. I mean, she was
Absolutely.
on
Yeah.
a roll of a lifetime. She'll obviously be back. She has become that character you don't boo. People don't boo Rhea Ripley. She could do the most shady shit in the world. I mean, she spanked Becky at WrestleMania and they didn't boo her. They didn't boo Rhea Ripley. But anyway, you
But
don't
back
have
to
a Rhea
AEW, do we
you
do
don't
we
have a
think
Rhea
Thunder
Ripley.
Rosa? Yeah, you
Yeah, you don't
don't,
have
but
you
do you think
no.
Thunder Rosa's coming in to win this women's world championship?
I do not. I think Tony Storm still retains the championship. I don't think they can change that many championships. And Dynasty is going to be this is a B tier pay per view to me. It's not one of their tent poles. It's not. It's not Vegas at Double or Nothing. It's not All In. It's not even Full Gear, and it's not Revolution. So this is one of their fillers because AEW is doing the same thing WWE's doing. They're getting
Yeah,
to 12 pay-per-views a year. Here's the problem.
I
I
ain't
get it
paying
for
$50.
I get it
Yeah,
for $5.99 on the cock, Terry. We ain't
right.
getting it. We ain't getting it on that on Bleacher Report or whatever bullshit
And I definitely ain't going to
platform
Dave
carries
and
it.
Buster's. Yeah,
No,
that won't happen again.
Terry ain't spending 100 for a $50 pay-per-view. That's what he just said.
Not at all. And then
Up
feeling
next.
guilty because I'm not buying any more drinks from the lady.
Up next, Julia Hart, Willow Nightingale. This has been building. I think you're going to see some shenanigans and a turn of some kind, be that Statlander or something. And as a reminder, while we're on the women's topic, Mercedes Monet was conveniently attacked and left laying in an interview segment because she's not wrestling till Double or Nothing. That has been made very clear. So who did it? Who was it? Blah, blah, blah. My money's honestly on Willow Nightingale did it. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes and how that plays out. Did you see the segment, Terry?
I did not see that one. I saw some
Okay.
highlights of a lot of other stuff, so I caught up on highlights this week on this.
I understand.
I've
But
seen
Julia
enough of the
Hart's been an
Julia
okay
Hart,
champ.
Willow,
Yeah.
and Chris Statlander, and
Well,
who
the
is it?
the foreplay is over. Let's get to business. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
they've
let's
danced
do
around
something
this
with
for
it.
months at this point. Let's just get to it. All right. You
I think we
know.
got a bigger match next listed here.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
something I know we want to talk about: Samoa Joe against Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. And
Whose
let's see
house? Swerve's house, baby.
Swerve's house. Let's see Swerve get some hardware around his waist here.
I don't think it happens though. Double or Nothing is where it needs to happen, and this shit pay per view is not where it needs to
Well,
happen.
you want to know where no titles seem to ever change? Battle of the Belts. What a waste of time that was. Did you see any of that?
All it is a glorified house show. That the champs come out and strut ass, but it's a glorified house show, and to me, it is boring.
It was horrible.
But you know
Not
who's
even worth
not boring?
mentioning.
You know
Who's
who's
not?
not boring? Bruv, Will Ospreay is not boring. Okay. So you got Joe and Swerve and Ospreay and Danielson, and let's be honest, that should sell the pay per view.
Yeah, these are good matches. Yeah, but we
Those two
don't think
matches
that
should
we're
sell
going
the
to
pay per
see.
view.
So you don't think we're going to see any titles change?
I think that Samoa Joe retains somehow. I think Okada retains somehow against Pac because you're going to have involvement probably from the elite in some way. Osprey beats Danielson because this is a legacy building thing for him, and Osprey is not coming in as the hottest free agent in the world. Sorry, Allison, it's not Okada. Not coming in the hottest free agent in the world for them to have him lose to Brian Danielson. Um, and that stupid 6-man tag at the end of it, Adam Copeland Eddie Kingston
It's
and
a
Mark
who
Briscoe.
cares match.
Yeah, who
I
gives
mean,
a shit? It's a get 'em on the card match. But
yeah,
the matches to pay attention to in my mind, Young Bucks FTR because it's FTR.
right,
Thunder Rosa, Tony Storm, Joe Swerve, Okada, Pac, because Okada and Pac will put on a damn show. Now
right.
they've got to be given time, 20 minutes or more, because the Rainmaker's going to get his shit in. And then you get Samoa and Joe Strickland and Will and Danielson. So the card itself should be worth $50. I just don't know that it's going to live up to I don't know that the result is going to live up to the advertisement. Let me put it that way. The product
Well,
is not going to live up to it.
does Tony Khan know how to book well enough to not do that?
I don't think so. He's a hot shotter at very best. Everything he does is superficial. What we're
Mm.
going to talk about on SmackDown here is not superficial.
Well, let's get it
But
started. Let's talk about some
okay, I
good
was going to
stuff.
say if you've got any
I'm
closing
wearing an
thoughts on
Yes.
AEW.
AEW shirt.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sitting there wearing my Chicago AEW all out shirt that I got at the Brawl Out and saying, let's move on to WWE. But let's move on to WWE.
Well, first thing I guess we got to start with Raw. I think we mentioned it a little bit, but I'll let you talk on this, Terry. 45-minute opening segment with Rock and Cody and Triple H. My world, too much. We know our producer has a son that loves wrestling and got bored because there was no wrestling. He wanted to see the actual wrestling. So I think the 45 minutes was too much. One thing I will say in their defense, and then I'm going to hand it to you, Philadelphia would not let The Rock get his shit in. They would not let him speak. And he just sat there and let them cheer and boo and cry and whine or do whatever and let them be Philly. The problem is you went 45 minutes and what did you accomplish in that segment?
Well, there were a couple of things. So, what I wrote down here, I noticed that it's obvious when Rock talks to Cody, he's got a lot of admiration for Dusty. Not necessarily Cody himself, but a lot of admiration for Dusty. Couple of quotes I wrote. He said, I was thinking I'm not quite too sure if my daddy was proud of me with all the bad stuff I did to you, but then I thought I don't care. So that was pretty good right there. You know, you think you're setting him up for all this good talk about Cody, and he just turns it around. I really don't care. And then Rock tells Cody, you finished your story. You did it, but our story has just begun. So that's a precursor to who knows what comes up next. But then they have this back and forth about, hey, I've never held that title. Can I hold that title? And then Cody tells Rock, I'll let you hold this one if I can hold that one for his People's Championship. And that was pretty good, you know. Then they had the little thing at the end where The Rock hands something to Cody, so that was a big moment. 45 minutes is pretty ridiculous, but I bet the first 15 of that happened before anybody said a word
Yeah,
because
so they
it was
did the
entrance time.
I've got a few thoughts on this as you might expect. They almost did the Rock Hogan from 2002 when they were in Montreal, and for 17 minutes you had a sustained ovation for Hulk Hogan. Um, it was one of the most awesome things I've ever seen as a wrestling fan, and I don't even like Hulk Hogan. Number two, the comparison of the fathers is very interesting because no offense to Rocky Johnson, who was one of the first African American wrestlers to win a tag team championship along with Tony Atlas, at least in the WWF, The Rock has eclipsed his father, eclipsed his
Oh,
grandfather,
easily.
eclipsed his grandmother. Um, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is the most important person in that bloodline, pun intended. Number two, on the issue with Dusty, Cody has and now and will forever live in the shadow of the American dream. No matter what he does, for those of us that are 40 years old and under, and even over, hardcore wrestling fans that know Dusty, Cody ain't it. Now, that's not to say he's not a great baby face. That's not to say he's not a great person to put out on the television and have do your talking. It's not to say he's not a great worker. He's far better in the ring than his dad. But there's one American dream, just one. And I know people say, well, that's why he goes by the Nightmare. No shit, I get it. But he has to blaze his own trail. And I think he's always had that 285-pound gorilla in polka dots staring him down. Because how do you ever step out of the shadow of Dusty Rhodes? One of the most important people in the history of professional wrestling.
You don't, but yeah, clap, clap,
Yes.
clap. I agree. You don't, but I think Cody's had to become his own man, and he's done a lot more in recent years than I know I expected him to. Because a few years ago, you didn't see this coming. He's gone a
Right.
lot farther than I expected. So, um, The Rock did not have as much. Obviously, he comes from a good bloodline. No pun intended that time, but it's the right word. But he didn't have as much competition as Cody did in his family. I mean, I know there were
Mm-mm.
numbers in the Rock's family, but none of them were Dusty Rhodes.
No, no, not even close. Not even close. And until you get to the generation after The Rock, there's no competition for him. Because the only one is Roman. The only one at Rock's level is Roman.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm sitting here looking at main event Jey Uso getting ready to wrestle. But that brings us to the next match, which you talk about here. CM Punk, fucking
Have we
A.
talked about CM Punk yet today? Have
I,
you had enough
it's
CM Punk?
it's becoming Nebraska football and Auburn football. We got to talk about CM Punk every single week. It seems like the only man to ever be on WrestleMania, Raw, and AEW Dynamite in the same week. So
Exactly. Oh man. So CM Punk interferes with Drew McIntyre. Drew is about to start for the Claymore against Jey Uso.
Mhm.
And before he can get moving, he's standing in the corner, and CM Punk grabs his leg. And next thing you know, we got a super kick, and he affected the match there. So he's definitely making himself known against Drew McIntyre now. So this storyline's going pretty well.
Oh, it's gonna get amped up. But here's the thing: I like two things about this. Number one, reinforcing the idea they don't need a championship to fight over. Because I don't want to see CM Punk in the world title picture. Fuck that. Number two, Jey Uso, Damian Priest potential is very high for that match. Very high. Um, and it's two younger guys, even though Priest is 40, Jey Uso's my age, he's 38. Um, but two guys you have not seen in a main event spot. You know, I guess Priest with Bad Bunny, back in Puerto Rico last year. Outside of that, I don't, think that you've seen Damian Priest in a really featured spot. He's been in the upper mid card, but now he's in the spot he's got to carry the show. And the Judgment Day carries Raw, as far as I'm concerned. If they get drafted to SmackDown, they'll carry SmackDown because it it's not the Dungeon of Doom where you put them all on the show to get them in the show, and that way they're all in all at once, like Kevin Sullivan told us at Top Guy Weekend last year. Every member of the Judgment Day can have their own segment, and it's not boring, it's not ridiculous, it's not
Right.
repetitive, and it doesn't get old. So, we even ran into that with the NWO. Over and again, you'd see them in the same show in Raw or Nitro, excuse me, or God forbid Thunder. Whoever watched that hot garbage. But you would see Hulk Hogan in 5 segments, Terry. That's my point. You see him in the opening segment, mid segment, locker room segment.
Oh, it got
Go,
tiring.
it got really tiring. The way they're doing it with the Judgment Day, like they just had Dom and JD McDonough on here. They had Rhea open the show. You know, that doesn't get burdensome. It doesn't get worrisome. It doesn't get you don't get fatigued by seeing that on the television. So anyway, just a thought there. Again, I think CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre's got box office appeal,
Oh,
but they
absolutely.
got
Yeah.
to get Well, I don't think there's any doubt Drew McIntyre's re-signing his contract. The question will be how long does he re-sign for WWE because he's getting up there in age. Um, because they're going to want that money angle. And CM Punk and Drew McIntyre will be money. If they can do it
Definitely.
in front of a foreign audience, it will be bigger money. So, but
Then, we moved to SmackDown, and then we got Cody again with the mic, and we saw all this stuff with The Rock, but that stuff with The Rock feels like we will eventually have our day. Cody starts talking about who is the first guy, and he
mhm.
lists off several people: Kevin Owens, LA Knight. You got any feel for who Cody is going after first, or
I
whoever's
think it's
coming after
AJ.
him?
I think it's AJ because we saw at the end of SmackDown, AJ wins the triple threat. He hits the Styles Clash off the second rope, gets the pin on Owens and Rey Mysterio. So I think it's going to be AJ. I think AJ gets his redemption next week. He beats LA Knight. They move on to France. Cody AJ's got great potential. Bullet Club history there over in New Japan, which we'll talk about here in a minute because we missed it, but we're not going to miss it because I've got a perfect segue. Because on SmackDown, finally, you talk about Cody. I think it's going to be AJ. Um, and I think they have to be careful overexposing Cody Rhodes. We saw him on Raw. We saw him on
Mhm.
SmackDown. They did a nice tie in, which we're going to get to in a second with the bloodline. But I get that Cody's your guy. He's the face of your company. He's your John Cena. He's willing to work 300 days a year. But is the audience willing to digest him 300 days a year? That's what you've got to be careful of because you will lose the audience by overexposing Cody Rhodes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. Um, I want to see a commitment to something and move on it. And let's kick up this next storyline and see where it leads us.
Well, and for the foreseeable future, SmackDown is still the A show because it's on Fox. Now, it would not shock me next year if you see Cody go to the Netflix network if they're going to split him
Yeah.
up and only have him work one show. But SmackDown's what we're talking about. And what we talk about on SmackDown is the bloodline. Paul Heyman comes out, Jimmy Uso's out, um, Solo is out, and the appearance of Tama Tonga. Terry, do you know who Tama Tonga is?
That's Haiku's son, correct?
That is Haku's son, one of
I said
Haku's son.
haiku like I'm writing poetry or
Yeah, it's
something.
okay. Taloa Tonga, the other member of the Gorillas of Destiny, is still unseen on WWE TV, as is
Yeah.
Jacob Fatu. But we see Tama come in, he attacks Jimmy Uso, he and Solo beating him down, hitting him with the spike, the old Umaga, you know, I guess homage to Umaga. That's the Samoan spike. Thumb in, I love you. I thumb, boom, I love you, boom, I love you, boom. They'll leave him laying. Beautifully sets up this intrigue as to who ordered the hit because they're trying to give you the appearance that it was Roman. Me, as a smart booking fan, believes that The Rock ordered the hit and that you're going to see the Usos reunite with The Rock to take on this new faction of the bloodline because, according to Solo, losses matter. Well, Roman lost the world title. So now The Rock, the final boss, because we know that that's contrary to the tribal chief. They can't
Right.
exist together. They
And he
can't
was holding up
coexist.
the L, not
Holding
the
up the
one.
L, all of that. We know that there's been a lot of hints at this. I personally think what you'll see is this a build to Survivor Series where you see Tonga and Solo and Rock and Jacob Batu versus the reunited Usos because they're a better tag team than they are individual.
Right.
Roman and either another family member or we bring back Sami Zayn. And I
Yeah, and
think
then Paul's response in all of this points to, a lot of times when this kind of thing would happen, Paul would just kind of be sitting there like this was expected. He was not acting that way this time.
red herring, he's on the Rock side. He's the mastermind behind it all.
I can see that.
That would be the way I would go. But I'm an old school heel fan. I love the heels in professional wrestling. But you know, speaking of heels, I hate to tell you, Terry, the Yankees are 12-4. That's God's team, sir. And we
That's okay.
love to be God's team.
They'll lose in the first round.
Stop it. Stop it. I need a boo from the
You're a
producer.
dumbass. You're a dumbass.
Arguably the best offense in baseball. We saw a real baseball game this weekend. Cleveland, obviously the Guardians. I will always call them the Indians on this show, though. I'm not politically correct. The Cleveland
Well,
Indians,
Major League did sit at the top of our top 10 list.
for a reason, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Cleveland Indians lost to God's team, the Yankees, 2 out of 3 this weekend. They did not get the sweep, but here's what I would propose to you, Terry, and I know you're a Braves fan and they've got good hitters too.
Hmm.
I don't know that you have a more complete offense in baseball than the Yankees. I really don't.
Well, I've been looking at stats, and I think you might want to look those up because I
I'm
don't
not
think the Yankees
retracting
are
that
up there.
statement. I'm not retracting that statement at all. Because here's the thing. Your stats are your stats against teams that don't matter. My stats are my stats when it does matter. And the Yankees have come from behind. The
That's
Yankees
because
have
their
come,
pitching sucks.
well, their pitcher, the man, Garrett Cole, not Jarrett, is on the injured reserve for the next
Mhm.
60 days. So, well, probably 50 days at this point. Who knows? But the Yankees are only going to get better. Judge is leading the charge there as the captain of the team. As you noted here, he ties Derek Jeter on the all-time Yankees home run list now.
He did.
Uh, Pretty good company to be in. Um, Giancarlo, of course, doing his thing, which I appreciate probably more than everybody on this show. Um, and Volpe doing a hell of a job. And I forget who I saw. It was the young guy, and now his name escapes me. I could have told you with if I hadn't been prompted. He's batting 440. So since becoming the leadoff hitter. So there you go. And I saw people criticizing the Yankees pitcher for his little trick throw, and he didn't leave the rubber, so it's not a pitch. But y'all get over it. Can't stop staring at the pinstripes. What about the Braves, buddy? Your team.
Well, you keep talking about Garrett Cole. Bad news in Braves country is Spencer Strider is out for the season. Tommy John surgery.
Mm.
I had to Google this to make sure. That's the ulnar collateral ligament. Try to say that 5 times fast. But Tommy John surgery on his right elbow. He's out. So we don't know what impact that's going to have. But Marcelo Zuna, he beat the Marlins with a ninth inning 3-run homer the other day, and he's got 20 RBI through 14 games. He's only the third Brave to ever have that. So a little bit of offense there between Ozuna and Acuna and Olson and the others in Atlanta.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Braves are a good baseball team, but we're 16 games in. That's the one thing about it. Sadly, though, we don't got no Bob Uecker to call these games. The good news is both teams are winning. They're not losing like the Indians were in Major League. But because I mentioned Bob Uecker, going back to Cleveland, got to say John Sterling, voice of the Yankees, is retiring immediately. And he says it's not health related, but he's tired.
He's
Um,
tired of all the rule changes in
I,
baseball, is what
I
he's
was going to
tired
say
of.
I'm not sure what exactly he's tired of. He
He's
pulled the
tired of
Nick
angel
Saban on.
practice.
He pulled the Nick
So,
Saban on all of us.
so we mentioned earlier that Aaron Judge tied Derek Jeter for the all-time Yankees home run list. One other guy we need to mention as far as home runs go, Andrew McCutchen, who has perennially been on a horrible Pirates team pretty much his whole career. 300th home run the other day. He's averaged about 20 or 25 homers and 15 to 25 stolen bases consistently through his career. He's one of these guys that, he's not on the marquee because he doesn't really make the playoffs much, but Andrew McCutchen with his 300th, worth mentioning.
Yeah, and consistently good.
Okay, are we talking about consistency here? Consistency in baseball,
We're trying to.
because I would like to throw in a little bit of my segment into this baseball one because I am pissed.
Uh-oh.
Terry said his name before, Angel Hernandez. Yeah.
The worst. The worst.
Okay. There's the worst, and then there's Angel Hernandez. Okay. I cannot tell you the number of clips I have seen this week with his blown calls. How it doesn't even matter who you play for.
What an idiot.
Damn straight.
I'm going to raise my hand.
Yeah.
Because I want to mention this because it only adds fuel to your fire. We on this show are not Dodgers fans.
Mm-mm.
We are not Padres fans either.
Mm-mm.
And we are not Houston fans. And I have seen clips in, again, all three of those teams where he has screwed up the play. And look, I am not a baseball umpire, but I could have got that shit right. Okay. I lie about this.
It's not even funny at this point. I mean, robot umps would be better than Angel Hernandez. Like you said, consistency is key, but his calls are consistently bad. Like, they're not even close.
You're 4 inches outside the strike zone, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in baseball, that's a fucking mile.
Unless you're Greg Maddux, and then I will accept it.
Yeah. But nothing pisses me off more than the delayed called third strike. And he loves to do that. And every time I want to kick him square in the balls. That's all.
My own first cousin did that to me when I was 14 years old. I'm sitting there, full count. This guy hits the corner, apparently. I didn't think he did. I didn't hear anything, so I assume it's ball 4. What I do, I turn around and I throw the bat over toward the dugout, and it's like 20 feet in the air, and I hear my cousin ring me up. And I'm like, okay, come on, man. Come on, Kevin. What is this all about? And I look back at him. Anyway.
Yeah, so we're going to segue right into my segment because that was my number one thing I'm pissed about this week.
Oh,
we can do that.
One other thing to mention, producer, because you help us write this show. Supposedly, and I'm going to ask you, this is a question. We were asked to come up with the top 10 of things worse than Angel Hernandez as an umpire. And we haven't made it to 10 yet. Is it possible?
Is Cleveland on that list?
Barely.
I'll tell you, it's at the point now where if you hear he's going to be in the game, I would just not go. I'd be like, that's it. I don't know.
Here's the thing to both of your points, because we talked about this off air. The Yankees right now, as an example, are 12-4. The Braves are whatever they are. But there's 162 games in this season. And as far as I'm concerned, that's 146 more opportunities for this guy to fuck somebody.
Absolutely. And he doesn't care who it is either, which is the worst part.
Well, that's the only thing he's consistent about. He doesn't play favorites.
I'd feel better if he played favorites. Then I'd be like, all right, well, he doesn't like that team. But no, he just apparently hates all fucking baseball players. Sorry.
And supposedly,
this is what happens when I get upset.
I read some articles and some comments. The comments weren't necessarily nice, but he has sued the MLB before for racial discrimination, and the union has backed him. And this is part of the reason that they keep his ass on. Am I understanding that correctly?
There's got to be some reason because it's unbelievable that he still has a job.
Well, and his argument is it was a strike when it crossed the plate. But if you're landing that far outside the strike zone,
we got technology that knows better than that these days.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, talk to us about it, producer. I'm sorry. I was just asking you questions because I'm interested in your opinion.
Now, my opinion is the man sucks and needs to be removed immediately.
Immediately.
Yes. See you later. But again, this leads me right into my second thing that I hate this week, and that's Cleveland. And I got a couple of text messages from my work friend about Cleveland Yankees this weekend, and I basically told him to go kick rocks because no,
Kick rocks. I'm sure that's the word you
that
used.
is not what I said, but I have a kid in the other room. So, and as Andrew knows, my kid does not like foul language.
No foul language.
No foul language. But Cleveland is the worst. It is just the worst. So I'm going to explain. People who've known me for a long time know I have a thing against Cleveland, and I'm going to explain why really quick. I worked and lived in Cleveland for 3 months on a summer internship,
Oh.
and it was the summer of 1996. Diehard Yankees fan in
Ugh.
Cleveland country. 50% of my wardrobe at that time was Yankee clothes.
And they were good
Like,
in 1996.
yes. And was I like the kind, nice New Yorker who showed up and didn't, brag about my team? Hell no. Again, you all know me. They hated me. People in Cleveland hated me. They were mean to me. They would say horrible things, all because I was a Yankees fan. Did I care? No, just screw them. But they would tell me things like, "Oh, well, you don't like Cleveland? Go downtown. Go see our skyscraper." You're what? Our skyscraper. I'm like, I'm from New York, right? We have more than one there. But apparently to them, this was fantastic. So now why am I pissed at Cleveland? Because somehow they won SummerSlam this year. I wanted to go. But do you think I'm actually going to go to Cleveland? Absolutely not. Mm-mm.
Nobody willingly goes to Cleveland. You went
right?
there for work.
That's it. It's the only reason people should go there. Just stay away. Cleveland's just horrible. But I'm mad because I can't go to the SummerSlam. So that's me. But all right. Well, I think this is also a good segue.
Absolutely.
Let's
talk about
let's
something
do it.
positive.
Let's talk about happy stuff and fun stuff
So-
and make people mad.
Now, wait a minute. Y'all about to launch the top 10, and I have taken issue with our voters in the past, and you're talking about happy stuff.
Oh, no,
Care-
that's what I said. I said we'll make people
let's-
mad.
Let's let the introduction happen before we start bitching about it. Okay. People that are not watching the show don't even know what we're talking about yet. So last week, let me tell you, so much stuff happened that we needed 2 shows. Then we kind of just went on hiatus with our thinking process, and we're like, oh crap, we need to do another show. So we had to throw some things together. But luckily, the producer has some backups for us, and this was the best of those backups. Nothing really in particular happened this week to point to. So we're going to do something fun this week. Top 10 TV game shows. Let's run it down. Number 10. The
Match
Match Game.
It's our girl.
And the picture that I picked here, and let me tell you before we get into this, there are going to be some horribly blurry pictures. You want to know why? Some of these game shows are old as dirt, and there's not any new, clean HD pictures available. But if you're listening to the audio, there is a Match Game picture of our love, Betty White, holding a card that says boobs, and I had to make that the picture that I used.
Absolutely.
Fantastic show. I love this show. So many funny people. I can't say enough about it.
No.
Wonderful show. If you haven't seen it, look for it.
Absolutely. Could not recommend this show enough. This always made me laugh. Absolutely every time. And it was so dirty. Back in the 60s, 70s, so dirty, and we could never get away with that nowadays, and I love that shit.
Generationally, this show is beyond me, so it did not make my top 10, but I do enjoy it.
You need to look it up. You really do. But before we go on, I'm going to go ahead and throw one out that did not make the top 10.
I had Game Show Network, sir. Game Show
You
Network.
people are sleeping on Supermarket Sweep. Let me just put that out
shit!
there.
How did that not make it? Yeah, how did that not make it? Did I not vote
so
for
I
it?
just revealed that it's not one of the next 9 because I know this, but look it up, people. I mean, we used to watch that every time it came on in college. We wanted one of those sweaters.
Oh, look. And they would go and they get the most obnoxious size roll of meat or the bread or whatever.
Now, mind you, there was a reboot with Leslie Jones, who's my girl because everything she did for Corey, Ryan Forrester. But
Yeah.
the reboot, and that's also some people's only exposure to the show, which
That's
makes me
true.
so sad because I'm like, no, you have to go back, watch the 80s, watch the people in their windsuits and like their, high top Reeboks. Oh, yeah. It's amazing. All the pastels, like you can't deal with it.
Okay, that's one show that I thought desperately. Well, it was number 11, just
Okay.
to let you know.
Okay,
Number
well,
9. Whose line is it anyway? And this one's a gray area. Is it a game show?
They
There's
got
no real
points.
contestant. They
I'm just
yeah, but
sketch comedy, basically.
I don't
hey,
care.
there
This
were
was
points
great.
that meant nothing. But hey, we love it, so we included it. You want to argue with that? We don't care. We put it on the
People
list.
obviously
People
voted
voted
it.
for it, and it's great. And this is also one that started in the UK, and it was hilarious. That version was on Comedy Central for years until Drew Carey brought it to ABC.
Yep. It was really the launch helped launch Wayne Brady's career, I would
Oh
say.
yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, his career was good, but when that came out, man, he was on fire. And the best, whose line is it anyway? If anybody says anything other than Richard Simmons, you're wrong.
It's like the Jack Black episode of Yo Gabba Gabba. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about,
Exactly.
go Google it.
Yes.
Number 8, Hollywood Squares. This is one that I spent 20 minutes looking for a decent damn picture, but I had to have Alf included.
That's right.
I
Alien
remember
life
that.
form, baby.
And Jim
Alien
J.
life
Bullock.
form.
These
Wow.
people, and I completely forgot about Shadow Stevens. Let me just tell you that.
Oh my God, Shadow Stevens.
I know you haven't thought about that guy in decades, have you?
No.
And then somehow they got Brandon Tartikoff. It's like he wanted to be a part of it or something, and he shows up. Like, get out of here, boss. Nobody wants you here. You're not funny. But I think that's Zsa Zsa Gabor in the bottom right of the picture, but it doesn't
She,
show her name because she's out.
yeah, she was convicted of a drive-by slapping.
No, I think it might be God, I can't tell.
And I don't know who Will Shriner is. There's Ed Begley Jr., Kim Fields.
Jim J. Bullock. Remember Jim J.
Yeah,
Bullock?
Oh, he was
Ed Begley.
great.
Ed Begley Jr. ended up playing on that show Seventh Heaven, produced by Brenda Hudson or whatever, and then she went on to do Secret Life of the American Teenager, and he was in that too.
Sure.
Things you
But
know when
anyway.
you watch Freeform, formerly the ABC Family Channel.
So
By the
Hollywood
way,
Squares was funny based on a lot of the answers that they would give. You know, they would try to sell you on some really stupid answer to something. By the way, what, Andrew?
I had an Alf doll in the 80s because I was bad
Oh,
at
God. That
yes,
is awesome.
sir.
Alf
Oh,
was
yeah.
fantastic.
Alien life form. He loved cats. My
Cats.
favorite. And you know what? You talk about adult jokes in Alf. If you go
Oh,
back and
Lord.
rewatch the Alf series,
Mm-hmm.
there
He
are
was
some
Ted
adult
before
jokes.
Ted was Ted.
Correct. Yes, I love Alf. But anyway, Hollywood Squares, not so much. Again, it's a little old for me.
Oh, you kill me every time.
You missed the era of the game show.
You
That's all I'm
did.
going to say. Number
Well, I
7.
also didn't miss a whole lot of school to play hooky and watch the Game Show Network like some
Hey, I
people.
watched what I
Shush.
watched at my Meemaw's house, sir. You don't be disparaging that.
That's what summers were made for.
I was at
Number
the
7,
pool.
Double Dare.
There we go.
And I tried
Bring
to
on the
find
slime.
a picture of a lot of this stuff. These pictures were the hardest pictures to find this week. So I got some kid jumping in popcorn or something. I don't know.
Where's
I
the
thought I
slime,
might-
Terry? Where's
So
the
it's Mark
slime?
Summers. We've got Mark Summers, and we've got. Do you guys remember the celebrity ones?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
They had wrestlers on at
Maybe
one point.
I needed a picture of them shoving their arm up the nose or something.
I was hoping this one would make it, simply because I used to love the fact. Do you guys remember what the main prize pretty often was?
No.
No, it was a
What?
trip to space camp.
Oh, that'll come up later, by the way. Just to let you
But
know.
that was the main. That was usually the main prize on Double Dare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to get so excited, and I could never be on it because I was always clumsy, even as a kid. And I'm like, nope, I would never win. So
Well, so I never went to space camp, even though it was an hour from me growing up. My daughter went to space camp. My son never did. He did other stuff other than space camp. So I got one more. Maybe he'll go to space camp at some point. We'll see.
I went to space camp. If you call hot boxing the 1995 Grand Am, we certainly went to space camp.
Anyway, Double Dare was fun. I remember this was one of the things we really looked forward to when I was in elementary school. Friends down the road, we would watch it together and we would try to act out some of the weird stuff they did.
I had
Number
the video
6.
game on a Tandy 1000. That is legitimate. I had a Tandy 1000 computer in the basement of my parents' house, and we had Double Dare, and that sumbitch came on the big floppy disk. Like, kids today do not know what real computer disks were like they used to be.
Mm-mm.
I just say that. Number 6. Sorry, Terry. Go ahead.
Number 6. Deal or no deal. So we're bringing in the somewhat recent era here. And this one was pretty fun. I liked watching it. Bunch of hot women holding briefcases, and you got the banker and all that stuff. It was pretty good.
My thing is they always pick stupid decisions. Like, you got $500,000 in the bank, take the fucking money. Who cares about the other 500,000? Because
Right?
you are walking $500,000 richer than you
Oh, they're
would.
smart. They're smart. They offer you exactly the right amount of money to find that balance point. It's like, I could take this money right now, but I've got a 50% chance to get 3 times this much money.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. This
But to
banker's
me, it
not
wasn't. To me, it wasn't that intriguing of a game show. Personally, I mean, it was okay. If it was on TV, I
You're not a
wouldn't turn the
Howie Mandel
channel.
guy. I don't shake hands, I fist bump.
Well, he's
He's
okay
gotten
on
better now.
Has
America's
he?
Got Talent. He's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I never got into this show because honestly, there was really no skill. It's
That's
like,
the other thing. There's
like
nothing.
no.
This ain't
It's like,
like Legends of the Hidden Temple, where you had to be able to run and juke the little bad guys. I mean, come on.
Did you
yeah.
watch that when you were younger, Allison?
Legends of
It
the
was a
Hidden
little bit. Yeah, see that's more Andrew's
Mm-mm.
age.
Yeah.
See, I was
Nickelodeon,
probably
baby.
borderline on that one. I
Yeah,
put it on the list, but I really didn't ever watch that.
I did. Go ahead. What's the next one, Terry? Number
Number
5.
5. Press your luck and look in the
Ah!
bottom right corner, Allison.
What?
Look what the prize is if you land on that. We've got Space Camp in a square on the bottom right. Press
Hell
your luck.
yeah.
No
Objection.
whammies, no whammies, no
Objection.
whammies, and stop.
Why are you
All
objecting?
y'all motherfuckers that participated in this poll just hit a whammy. This is the number 1 game show with a bullet.
Oh,
There is no
Okay.
reason
see,
for
I
this
don't
not
ever
to be
know
number
if he's
1.
mad because it's on the list or if he's mad because it's not high.
I know, I
He
can't
just
tell either.
starts in, and then it's this anticipation to see what he's pissed about.
This is number 1. This is the best game show ever.
We don't have
Number
to worry
1.
about making fans mad. We have to worry about making Andrew mad.
Correct.
Jeez.
I'm not
Because-
worried about it. He gets mad no matter what.
I will revoke your voting privileges. I'm warning all of our listeners.
So good. I loved this show personally. We would yell at the TV. Like that to me, that's a great game show when you're screaming at the
Yeah.
TV.
It's good.
That's what
and
I'm
I
talking
mean,
about.
This was the game though that the one guy figured out the pattern pretty well.
Yep.
And racked up.
Yeah, Efren reminded us of that on his show, the game event, and he loves to tweet it. But the guy hit a whammy, and then he went, I don't know, 20 some turns or whatever without hitting a whammy because he had figured the pattern of the game board out.
Yeah.
And he walked away with some stupid amount of money that was absolutely asinine for the 1980s, But who didn't yell no whammy? Who didn't yell big bucks? I mean, come on. This is the game, All y'all wrong, but go ahead, Terry. What's number 4? Wait.
Number 4.
What is not number 4? Because it doesn't matter because this is number 1. Move on. Let's go.
Number 4. Wheel of Fortune. And I struggled with a picture here also to capture everything, but I had to have Vanna on there. I had to have Pat. This is not actual game competition, so criticize me if you want to. But Wheel of Fortune's fun. You think that you can
RSTLNE.
dominate this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of those shows that if you're sitting on your fat ass at home eating your potato chips, you are
Mhm.
calling everybody on this show morons because you
Correct.
can do a lot better than they can.
I'm
That's the
solving
big
every
joke.
puzzle and I'm doing it before the letters are revealed and it's right. To your point,
Mhm.
Terry, if I was standing up there spinning that fucking wheel, it would be bankrupt every time, or I would forget that you go RSTLNE
Oh,
and then
yes.
build from there.
Right.
Great.
And I
Number
love the ones
3.
that really do mess up where like the whole
I love
whole
how he
thing
goes
is
real
filled
off.
in, but a couple blanks and they still fuck it up. How did you manage to do that?
Those are
I
without
gotta
a doubt
tell
my
you,
favorite
it's so
episodes.
funny. We have a second or two of silence, and then I start to go, and then he goes, "And one more thing," like over and over again.
All
Number
right.
3, Jeopardy. And I just
This is
showed a
my
game board here. We got Sweet Home Alabama or something like that. And then we got my favorite book I've ever read, The Princess
Princess
Bride.
Bride.
I love that movie. Wow, it was
27
so
Dresses was
freaking
also a book.
Love Actually is these are all movies.
Yeah.
rom-coms,
All rom-coms.
Failure to
cellular
launch, yeah.
launch. So
It's supposed to
obviously,
be
if you're
Sweet
just
Home
listening to
Alabama.
audio, we're talking about a picture that you don't see. But Jeopardy and Jeopardy's fun, but I rarely know enough.
Hmm.
I never sit watching Jeopardy hardly ever and think that I would do anything on this show.
Mm-mm.
So I have a friend who was actually on Jeopardy.
That's great.
She didn't win, but she did great. It was amazing to actually, and she's smart. She's like super smart.
Yeah.
I always think like if Andrew and I were in a room together watching Jeopardy, between the two of us, we'd probably get every question right because we have enough useless knowledge stored in our brains that is perfect for Jeopardy. But we need to be together because we kind of play well off each other because I know shit you don't know about and you know shit I don't know about. So
Well, and the other thing about Jeopardy is you have to answer it in the form of a question. So it's what is, who is, what, where, what, whatever. The other thing about Jeopardy is you can get on a roll really, really fast, and the next category you don't know shit.
mhm.
Right.
And so this was my dad's favorite game show because he was one of those nerds that had all sorts of. He didn't have a college degree, high school educated, multiple certifications in trade, went to classes galore, probably went to the equivalent of 150 credit hours in college with his, technical training and shit, but never had a college degree. He could watch Jeopardy and it didn't matter the topic. And it was boom, 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 boom. But my father was the type of person, if you put his ass on camera, you'd have never heard a word from him ever.
No.
He didn't have the outgoing personality. He would have never said, but he could sit there and watch Jeopardy smoking that fucking cigarette. Here he goes. And he knew every answer in Jeopardy. It was stupid. And it didn't matter the category. Like one
Yeah.
time they had J.R.R. Tolkien as a subject, and he smashed every single one of them, including the Daily Double. And I'm like, no idea. I
Wow.
knew he wrote The Hobbit. I mean, shit,
Yeah.
you know, Bilbo Baggins.
Number
But
2.
anyway, no, Jeopardy's fun. Also, to mention, Terry, because I know you love one. I just did it to you. Amy Fowler, or give me
Amy
her
Farrah,
name.
Farrah Fowler.
Amy Farrah
Sarah
Fowler.
Fowler was the host, who was also
Blossom.
Sheldon's girlfriend in Big Bang Theory. See, I knew this would come back up some point, but it hasn't been the same since Trebek died of cancer. That's all.
No.
So,
It hasn't.
Yeah.
Ken Jennings is good, but
dude,
he's
Ken
wild.
Jennings was the best contestant they ever had. He won how many ever days in a row, and nobody
It
even
was
came
ridiculous.
close. That was stupid.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Go ahead.
The Price is Right. And I like this picture because it shows the big wheel, because I had to show the big wheel, but this lady's going crazy. And I got to think, whatever episode this is, when they told her, come on down, that had
Oh
to
yeah.
be a show.
Yep.
This woman was feeling it. My mama went with her coworkers to the Price is Right one time, and one of them got called down.
Price is Right is a fine show. I like it. Spin the big wheel. but it's not better than Pressure Luck. So
But it's also another show where, they learned a lesson about people being able to research their show. They put the same products out over and over again, and some guy
Hmm.
just did his research and went on the show and dominated.
mhm. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
The Showcase Showdown too was always fun. Come within without going over. If you get within, what was it? If you get within $1,000 or $100, you won both. What was the
So,
rule, guys? Do you remember?
I don't know. I thought you had to get it on the nose or something to win both.
okay, so I'm going to mention something and I'm going to go back one or two to Wheel of Fortune. Terry, you might remember this, but Andrew probably doesn't. Do you remember when they won, they used to be able to pick out prizes for how much money they
Oh
had?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They had like the
A big showcase with a bunch of
yeah,
different like things. Like you'd be like a living room. So you'd have a sofa, a couch,
right.
a bar, a pool table, and they used to take however much they won and be able to buy the prizes on the display. It's
I
crazy.
I definitely don't remember
I
that.
know.
I remember it being cash, or you
Yeah.
want a trip to the Caribbean, you want a
Nope.
trip to
A
Europe,
brand
you
new
want,
Casio video cassette
yeah,
recorder.
exactly. But I never actually saw an episode where they picked the prizes out.
Well, I'm gonna
Yeah, that
find
was
one and
right
send
at
it
the
to you.
beginning.
Yeah.
That was
Good
when
stuff.
Vanna was still like in her 40s.
And a Playmate. I know that too. Vanna White posed naked in a magazine, and I never saw it for obvious reasons. What's up next?
All right. Sorry for the segue. First, number
And the
one.
number one TV game show, according to our listeners and voters, Family Feud. And if you're watching this and you see this scene, you know what scene this is.
It's hilarious.
Distract him.
She bounces them boobies.
And I tried.
I went to go, woo, but you can't really see it with my background.
Oh, but this is a great show. I mean, it's had multiple really good hosts.
Yes.
The format is awesome. I love it.
So even with all the fabulous hosts, Steve Harvey to me takes it to another level. I know there are the purists out there who love Dawson and Louis and I'm forgetting.
Oh, the
Oh,
guy,
yeah.
the smaller
Rake
guy. I
Holmes.
can't even-
Rake
Ray
Holmes.
Combs.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
That was going to
I
Rake
be
mean,
Holmes.
they were
Yep.
great. They were all great. They all had their own thing. Like Dawson kissed everybody.
yeah.
And not just a little
Mhm.
kiss. Like he kissed the women. But Steve Harvey pulls out the best comments in people, and then the expression on his face. I love it. I absolutely entertaining from start to finish.
Yeah, I love the show. Apparently, it's not number one according to Andrew, but
No.
very good show.
I guess if Pressure Luck had to lose, this one is okay to lose to. Those other ones are entirely wrong though, because Pressure Luck and Family Feud are really my must game shows. Other than Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, but they're down the list, okay? Because it's Pressure Luck, it's Family Feud. Family Feud, to Allison's point, Steve Harvey, body language, smart ass comments, interaction with the guests and audience. I love Dawson, and that goes back to the Game Show Network, and of course Ray Combs and Louis Anderson. But Steve Harvey with the bullet takes this one for me, and it's not close. But I do. There are so many fun clips. I know I've sent you guys to them, and the one Asian guy comes to mind. Um, the I don't even remember the joke though. Something your girlfriend hit my face or something, he says, and then she's sitting there cheering, and he's right, and it's an answer. Um, it's hilarious. I'll find the clip and send it to y'all so Terry
I
can
like
post
the
it on
one.
social.
Yeah, I like the one where they ask what Popeye eats, and the girl goes chicken, and she's all excited, and everybody's like, "What the hell are you saying?"
The other thing is when they there's been a few of them where name a book that starts with the letter whatever, and it's the sound, but it's not the letter, like night whatever, but it starts with K, and the guy's so confident that he thinks he's right and he's definitely wrong, which makes it hilarious to me.
The lightning round's a lot of fun sometimes, where people say some really stupid, like Snoop Dogg did that in the celebrity episode, and it was really funny.
I think the goal is if you can make the host break down during the lightning round, you are an automatic awesome contestant. Because to me, that was always like the line. If you can make whoever the host is stop and give you more time in the lightning round because he's laughing too hard,
Yeah,
that's a great contestant. All right,
absolutely.
folks, I am gonna head on out.
Uh-oh.
Have a good night.
All right,
Oh,
thank
what
you.
happened? All right, bye.
See ya.
So let's run it down from 10 to 1. So we had Match Game at number 10. Whose Line Is It Anyway at number 9. Hollywood Squares at number 8. Double Dare at number 7. Deal or No Deal at number 6. Press Your Luck at number 5. Wheel of Fortune at number 4. Jeopardy at number 3. Number 2 was The Price is Right. And the winner here is Family Feud. And another show that belongs on this, not getting enough love, is Remote Control. I wanted to talk about that today. You young folks don't know of that show, I don't think, but it was fantastic. Colin Quinn, Corey Wurr, Adam Sandler got his start on there. Amazing show. You need to go look it up.
The Nerd is coming out, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I just heard. The Nerd
MTV.
is
That
coming
was an
out.
MTV show. How's that make me a nerd? It just makes me
I don't
old,
know.
actually.
I don't
It's
know.
not nerd, it's old.
Love Line with Dr. Drew was an
Ah,
MTV show. Adam
Love
Carolla,
Line.
Dr. Drew. Come on now. You know you watched it. And let's not
Jenny
forget
McCarthy on a bunch of stuff.
for our next show that we're going to have at some point is for our next show that we're going to have at some point, we are going to have not game shows necessarily, but what do we call them, Terry? Virtual reality shows. And I think since you mentioned MTV,
Not
Road
virtual
Rules,
reality.
not virtual reality, excuse me,
That
reality
would be
shows. What the
interesting.
fuck?
Yeah,
That's
reality
my
game
bad.
shows. Well, I
I'm
mean,
watching.
extra Survivor. That's going to be your big brother and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I got a lot of shit going on.
that.
I got the iPad here. I got the wrestling hero Jey Uso taking on the Judgment Day. But no, the reality TV shows like The Bachelor. For those of you that didn't like that we didn't put The Bachelor on the list, ain't
Naked and Afraid.
nobody getting roses this week, and nobody's surviving the wilderness naked next to the King Cobra. Okay, not on this show, but on reality TV that is definitely not scripted. We certainly will cover that sometime down the road. So there's your preview.
All right, good list. Thank you, everybody that voted.
Good
Why
list,
don't we
but
talk a little
press
bit
your luck.
about the RAM Network? And obviously, we are on the RAM Network. You can find our show there. It's a Patreon, patreon.com/RAM Network. It includes our show, Filter Free Popcast, Talking Wrestling with Pondwater Dave, and a bunch of other new shows that we've talked about in the past. What do we got going on this week on the RAM Network, Andrew? What do we know about? What's Filter Free doing for us?
So our boys at Filter Free are covering a favorite era of mine, 1989, right now, specific to the NWA and WCW, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat. However, they are covering a show where the house was not drawn. It's the Louisiana Superdome. It's the Clash of Champions. It is April, I believe, of 1989. So this is right in the middle of the Flair Steamboat trilogy.
Yep.
This is the second match. It's in the Louisiana Superdome. And if memory serves me correctly, 1,000 people did not show up to that event. So think about that. Louisiana Superdome, Flair Steamboat, the trilogy that's the gold standard in professional wrestling that set the bar for everybody, and less than or right at 1,000 people showed up in a building that I would guess the Superdome, Terry, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, depending on how they set it up. I don't know. I don't know
I
what the
don't know.
capacity for the Superdome is, but I promise you it was more than 1,000. But anyway, listening to Tim and Dave and PJ talk about the Superdome and that sort of thing will be fun. Box score trivia from 89 will be fun. Music from 89 will be fun. So make sure you see the Filter Free Popcast boys. Pretty sure Pondwater Dave's interviewing they're starting their interview series with the independent wrestling promotion. he and Amy, and I would imagine Justin. Not sure if he's available this week or not, but I would imagine they'll be on talking about CWF or CFW. I forget
Yeah,
what it is, but they're supposed to
yeah, I'm
do a
not really
series where
sure what's
there's
this week. Yeah, but
4 weeks.
let me
Yeah,
run down since we don't have all the details about this week, and that's our fault for not knowing exactly that. Let me run down some shows they've had in the past. How about that? First off, and I'm just going to throw this out there to our friend Frank Bruno because he made a donation and he got to have the Frank Bruno show on there. I'm going to mention that one first. We love our boy Frankie. But how about a lot of WCCW stuff in the past? Um, they've had a show about Ric Flair's last match. They revisited that. That's because Pondwater Dave was the ref that counted the 3 count in that. Whether he looked at the shoulders or not, Andrew, that was the case. We had Kaya McKenna on there, Cabana Man Dan, Legacy Championship Wrestling. Ray Fury's been on there. Let's see. They had the Monster Hunter, Matthew Palmer. Rise Wrestling was on there. The Arkansas Roughneck, Tony Gunn, Geo Savage, Vladimir Koloff. Tim Storm was on there. That was a huge
Angel.
show.
Angel
They
was
had
on there.
Yeah, they
Camacho.
had. Yeah, and well, I hadn't got there yet. I'm going down the list, but Angel Camacho was on there. They had the Buttercream Dream, Corey Ryan Forster. They had Conrad Thompson before. They had Cassio Kidd. They had Mark Dodd, the voice of primetime wrestling. Man, they've had so many great independent wrestlers. They had Derek Zoo, the comedian and friend of ours. They had a review of the Iron Claw movie. Like I said, a lot of WCCW.
Lance
I could just
Peterson.
go on and
The,
on. Adam
I think that's the
Jacobs.
I think that's the
Yeah.
guy's name, Lance Peterson of the WCCW podcast.
But I
Um,
will mention one more. If you know the professor, Nick Harrison, he was on the show a few weeks ago. Excellent episode if you want to go back and look at one on YouTube or on the RAM Network. But let's move along. The RAM
before you
Network has
do,
a lot of
c-
stuff for you. Go ahead.
before you do, because you love when I say that, and I know she whistled at us. Coming to the RAM Network, maybe this week. We don't know for sure. She and I are going to work it out. Allison and I are reviewing Gibson's in Chicago for our Put It in Your Mouth food review show. So we're going to review Gibson's, and then of course we're going to be going to Baltimore, and you'll be able to find our episode on Jimmy's Seafood and Sabatino's on Put It in Your Mouth. And remember, those are exclusive to the Ram Network on Patreon, where for $10 a month you get all of these shows, and you get all of the bonus shows, all of the bonus content from Super Dave is doing a belt audience with the Pope, or a audience with the belt Pope. I said that backwards, excuse me. It's an audience with the belt Pope. We know that our friend Amy and TJ have done The Power of the Pen, or
That's right.
whatever that
Power of the
book.
Pen.
They're talking about the original Chic Ed Fairhot. And we talked to Amy about that on this show. Of course, we know they're bringing back the Justin Yent show with the crime. I forget the name of it.
Evolution of Evil.
That's it, Evolution of Evil. So a number of things that you can get. We're full of ideas. We've got so many ideas. We're screenshotting them at this point. So there will be more and more content rolled out. It's a matter of getting it created. As everyone can imagine, there's kids, there's husbands, there's wives, there's partners, there's dogs, there's work, there's jobs, there's everything else to consider. But patreon.com, the Ram Network, that's wrestling and more, because we are in the South and we do not use the word wrestling. It's wrestling and more. So find us, like us, subscribe us, give us feedback, tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of.
Awesome. Thank you. And let's move along to another favorite segment we have, Champ of the Week. And this week, I don't think we're going to get much of an argument here. Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, is getting our Champ of the Week this week. So this is going to take a minute. Won't you sit back and let me run down all of this man's accomplishments. His acting career, let's start there. He was Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, George Milton in Of Mice and Men, Ken Mattingly in Apollo 13. He was Harry Truman in Truman. He's done over 30 films and 20 TV shows. He's been in 6 different plays in multiple theaters, and he was even the voice of a CSI video game. But that's not why he's the champ of the week. His humanitarian work is why he's the champ of the week. He did not take being Lieutenant Dan lightly. He co founded Operation Iraqi Children to assist in building schools in Iraq. He is on the advisory council for Hope for the Warriors, who provide non medical assistance to combat wounded veterans. He supports multiple veteran organizations personally and through the Lieutenant Dan brand, frequently performs on USO tours. He's a national spokesman for the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial. In 2006, he started co hosting the National Memorial Day concert on the Mall in Washington, D.C. On April 16th, 2021, he hosted the inauguration ceremony of the World War I Memorial in Washington, D.C. Let me take a breath. And now I will go over his rewards. If you're watching the video, you are going to see a picture where he received the Presidential Citizens Medal from George W. Bush. He is an honorary Marine, an honorary U.S. Navy Petty Officer. In 2013, he received the third highest honor within the Department of the Army Civilian Awards, which is the Outstanding Civilian Service Award for his work with the Gary Sinise Foundation. And get this number. Numbers are big. This is not a typo. I double checked this. Every single year, the Gary Sinise Foundation raises over $30 million for veterans, including building smart homes for several veteran families. He's nonstop helping veterans and their families and children in Iraq and all these things I just listed out. Bravo to Gary Sinise. He is our champ of the week. Take a breath.
Yeah, there's not really anything more to say. I live in North Carolina because my family is military family. My sisters both married their husbands in the military. They've all been overseas. My oldest sister was on a destroyer boat after 9/11 that sunk a pirate ship and killed everybody on that ship. My brother-in-law, God knows what he's done. The other brother-in-law spent 168 days at sea, and my sister speaks Arabic because she was a cryptologist. So post 9/11, seeing George Bush there obviously brings a lot of that about. But that's the only reason I live in North Carolina. As a family moved here. We believe in the military. We believe in what they do. People like Gary Sinise that want to bring awareness to Veterans Affairs. It does matter. We treat people willing to put their lives on this line in this country like shit when they get back from the worst places on earth that could only be compared to hell. So something like this, very near and dear to us here at this show, and he's very, very deserving of being our champ of the week.
Absolutely. And my middle child, my son, took the ASVAB today. So we got a path forward with him. Very proud of that. But he's not quite there yet. I'm very proud of him for taking those steps. But we're very proud of our service members, veterans, those in active duty today, those that have been impacted by the wars that have been fought for things that we believe in. And what we say to those people is, we believe in you and we believe in those things and we love you and we thank you for that and your sacrifices that you commit your whole life to.
Yep.
So Gary Sinise puts it in action, and that's why he's our champ of the week today. Thank you for your words, Andrew. And I know that Allison agrees with us. She's been cheering the whole time.
Very
So
much
let's
so.
wrap it up, bud. Great way to end it there. You want to talk about positivity. Gary Sinise is positivity.
Well, using your platform to do something like that matters because, like you said, he's a who's who and he's been in everything. My favorite part of Forrest Gump, because you asked, was when he's cussing the hurricane out, because that's some shit I'd pull. They're out just shrimping, and he's cussing the hurricane, and then of course they're the only ones that catch the shrimp because Forrest is praying and Gary Sinise or Lieutenant Dan is cussing. So there it is. But um, like I said, that platform's amazing. He is somebody everybody knows. You missed CSI New York as a part of his filmography because that's
Well,
a
I
lot where
mentioned the video game.
right. But you know what I'm saying? It was a
Yeah,
spinoff of CSI. People got to
yeah,
see him weekly. They know who he is. He was in the movie Ransom as well as a bad guy.
yeah. I did leave a couple of those off.
Remember, he kidnapped Mel Gibson's son.
Hmm.
Look, you know how many there are?
A
But
lot.
like I said, to use that platform in such a positive way, I'm all for it. And doing that for the military for our and being awarded congressional and presidential awards, that means he's doing something important. You don't it doesn't happen. I'm not going to go get that award. Let's put it that way. Okay? So those are reserved for only the best people, and he's one of them. So I really enjoyed that, Terry. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Allison. Fantastic show. I was concerned because last week was so packed with so many things happening. And I was like, what's there going to be to talk about this week? But I think between this discussion about Gary Sinise, which has been one of the absolute best champs of the week we've had, and the discussion about the game shows wonderful. Obviously, a lot of wrestling content, baseball and football. There's always something to talk about on this show, and we thank anybody that's gotten this far and listening or watching. We welcome you to keep trying us out, and we thank you for it. That's all we can say. Any final thoughts, Andrew?
Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. I am irreverent as possible because Terry refuses to be. So I'm doing the work of two people on this show. And some days, even the Lord's work because he refuses, even liquored up, to sink to my level because he's such a classy individual. Whereas I am a car guy and don't give a shit. So, anyway, those are my closing thoughts. Other than remember, you have an hour and 18 minutes to pay your taxes because the government hates competition and they will fine your ass for being late because they can get away with it even if they don't have a budget.
All right, so I'll go ahead and hit the button here and then I'll go pray for you. But before that, I will say what I always say. As always, love your people, tell them you love them, make it weird. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week.